A daughter-in-law should be absolutely obedient to her mother-in-law. What is this nonsense? The mother-in-law who said such a thing proudly, what awaited her was a self-inflicted and retributive bad end. My name is Fiona, 42 years old, and I have been married for about 5 years. Because I married late, we were not blessed with children, but we are living a reasonably good life together. My husband, Isaac, was a company employee, and so was I. We live a little rich by renting an expensive apartment together with our salaries. But we are not spenders by any means. We just decided to spend money on a place to live since we don't have children. We are saving for our retirement though. We were hoping to live modestly and happily together. But the nightmare came suddenly and without a footstep. On one day, my husband came home from work and looked around the house. He said, "You'd better clean up your room by next week." I always clean up my room, but is it messy? No, my mom is coming next week. You mean she's stopping by? What are you talking about? My mom is going to live in this house. Huh? What? I was surprised that I made a funny voice. It seems that my husband's parents' house, the house where my mother-in-law lives, has been rented out to someone else for the honest reasons. I didn't even know that my husband's parents' house was rented. I was simply astonished. But how could the landlord evict the resident without permission? When I asked my husband about it, he told me that he had been notified about it 6 months before. In other words, my husband and my mother-in-law were steadily making preparations for moving in together without my knowledge. I don't like it when you decide things on your own like that. You are not saying that you want my mother to sleep on the street, are you? I retracted the words that were about to come out of my mouth. Letting my old mother stay with us is nothing. It's what we have to do. But you know, I can't get along with her. What are you talking about? We figure something out. So, it's a done deal, okay? What in the hell this could happen? My husband's laxity was appalling. To tell the truth, I didn't like my mother-in-law. She was hostile to me from the beginning of our marriage, saying she didn't want an older wife. She didn't like a daughter-in-law who was the same age as her son. How anyone can say such a thing to a person? Moreover, this mother-in-law had a terrible drinking problem. Thinking back, I can't tell you how many times I've struggled to stop my mother-in-law from drinking and acting out. She has caused trouble on various occasions such as wedding celebrations, birthdays, and housewarming gifts for my relatives. There is no way I can live with such a mother-in-law. My husband's father passed away 2 years ago, so there is no one in a position to remonstrate with my mother-in-law. So my mother-in-law can do whatever she wants anytime she wants. Well, the problem is that my husband is not a bulwark to stop my mother-in-law. We had no choice but to start living together with my mother-in-law. And it made me reconfirm that her selfishness is getting worse. First of all, it was the day of moving out. I had to go to work as usual. So I told her sorry, that I couldn't help her to carry in her belongings. Why should I work when you don't, Fiona? This is upsetting. What kind of a job is that for a wife? It's not your job to take care of the house, isn't it? There she goes. She started lecturing me again. I told you we are moving in today. Didn't you take a day off? And my husband, he blames me for not taking a day off. I told you last week. There is no way I can take a day off that easily. You really don't listen to anything I say, do ya? I said to my husband. Even when I left the house, I was still pissed off at him. I don't know what's going to happen now. I'm getting more and more irritated with my husband and mother-in-law. It's getting worse every day. You'd better do a better job with the roasted potatoes today. I'm sorry, but my husband likes them a little burnt. Stop making excuses. If you're going to make excuses, why don't you just cook twice? What? I can't. I'm away at work during the day, and I don't have time to cook twice. I'm sorry, but could you be patient? Patience? You want me to be patient? Do you understand your position? It started again. If I disobey my mother-in-law, it will come back to me twice as much. At first, I tried to resist her words as much as possible, but gradually I lost the will to do so. If you complain so much, why don't you cook and eat by yourself? Of course I couldn't say something like that. I decided to start cooking again, just as my mother-in-law wished. She also complained about my seasonings of my cooking, and told me how to clean the house. There was no room for me to rest when I'm at home. After all, you are a terrible cook. I don't know how you're going to feed this to my son. The living room is messy again. You should put things where they belong. What? Excuse me? But you're the one who made the mess, remember? I said to myself, and my husband goes like, Mom's right. You should cook better, Fiona. You're making a mess in here. You should at least clean up after yourself. You've never cared about the taste of food or the condition of the room. So I was exposed to the combination attack of my mother-in-law and my husband every day. At the worst time, it was like this. You were 37 years old when you got married, weren't you? If you were still on the market at that age, you're just thankful Isaac married you. You don't want him to divorce you, right? You're right, Mom. Right, honey. So, Fiona, let me tell you something. A daughter-in-law should absolutely be obedient to her mother-in-law. That way, you don't have to get divorced. Okay? My husband and my mother-in-law contentedly have their say. You don't even have a child, and you should have been kicked out of the house. But you see, we've forgiven you. You should be thankful. My mother-in-law was just an evil creature, laughing in a teasing voice. My husband agreed with her. I can't take this anymore. Nor my husband for attacking me. What kind of person can say such a horrible thing to another person? I can't stay with these people any longer. I felt the flame of anger quietly burning. One day, my husband, my mother-in-law, and I went to the celebration of my grandmother-in-law's 80th birthday. Honestly, this kind of family gathering is troublesome for me. Don't worry, Mom. Fiona will take care of everything for you. Oh, that's right. A daughter-in-law is absolutely obedient to her mother-in-law. While my husband and my mother-in-law were grinning at me, I just kept a blank expression on my face. When we arrived at the place, the relatives had already started to gather, and preparations for the celebration were in progress. I rushed into the kitchen and started to help them. As soon as my mother-in-law arrived, oh, there is so many delicious-looking bottles of wine. I wonder if I should do a little taste now, she said and started to sip quickly. My grandmother-in-law, who was the person we all gathered together for, looked at her with a bit of dismay. Grandma, it's been a long time. I'm sorry about her. I apologized for my mother-in-law's behavior. It's not for you to apologize, Fiona. The daughter-in-law of mine is a real pain in the ass, isn't she? This grandmother-in-law is my husband's grandmother. She has been taking care of me since the beginning of our marriage. So she is like a real grandmother to me. Congratulations on your 80th birthday. I'm happy to be here. I really missed you, you know? I missed talking with you. Me too, Fiona. Even though we are not related, you are a precious granddaughter to me. I loved the look on her face as she giggled and smiled softly saying that. But the boozy mother-in-law seemed to have already finished her drink before the celebration even started. Oh, it's so good. Give me another glass of wine. I hoped she would be quiet at the celebration. Then my grandmother-in-law greeted the guests and the party started. Hey, Fiona, bring me another bottle. My mother-in-law held up an empty large bottle of wine and called me over. She's been drinking a little too much. One of the relatives secretly whispered to my ears. We are celebrating our grandmother's birthday today. But my mother-in-law's getting a little carried away. So I brought her a glass of water instead. Hey, let's drink some water and calm down. My mother-in-law violently shook off my hand, holding out the glass. The glass broke into pieces, making some noise, and the place became quiet. What? Why should I drink water when it's a celebration? Just bring me another bottle of wine. My mother-in-law made a big fuss in spite of the surrounding people's dismay. Fiona, are you all right? Are you hurt? My grandmother-in-law came to me with a worried look on her face, but my mother-in-law didn't care about that. I always say that a daughter-in-law is absolutely obedient to her mother-in-law. She rants and raves. Yeah, if you disobey us, you will get a divorce on the spot. Listen to what we have to say, said the drinking husband, who humiliates me in front of many relatives on an occasion like this. Even though he was drunk, it was too much. I was so angry that I was about to leave the spot. But my grandmother-in-law quickly stepped forward and said in a small voice that she would take care of it. She pointed out my mother-in-law and said, Why don't you quit forcing others to do what you can't do yourself? My mother-in-law's face returned to that of a sober woman. You haven't obeyed me or my husband since you got married, haven't you? At these words, all the relatives fell silent. A voice that seemed to be trying to hold back laughter rose. Excuse me? What are you talking about? My mother-in-law seemed to be confused. I'm just telling you the truth. Have you ever listened to me, your mother-in-law, even once? Try to remember. You never did you? My grandmother-in-law spoke slowly, as if she were telling off a kindergartner. However, it seems as if she was encouraging my mother-in-law, which made me feel funny. Please, don't interrupt us. This is our problem. My mother-in-law, flinching at Grandma's unexpected attack, retorted in a clear tone of voice. My grandmother-in-law's did not flinch and continued. I don't know about that, but it's not normal to treat your own daughter-in-law like that in front of your relatives. I couldn't help but to speak up. Such bullying is disgraceful and must be stopped at all costs. My mother-in-law overreacted to the tone of her words of bullying. I was just teaching her how to behave because she is doing a lousy job. But no matter what I say to her, she just keeps talking back to me. This is discipline. The moment I heard that, I took out my phone. Finally, this is the perfect timing. Is that right? Well then, can you listen to this for a minute? I played the recordings on my phone. If you were still on the market at that age, you should be thankful Isaac married you. You don't even have kids, so you should have been kicked out of the house. But you see, we've forgiven you. You should be thankful. Everyone was shocked at the recorded data. The recording continued. A lot of ugly abuses of my mother-in-law that would make anyone cringe. My husband's voice was recorded as well, laughing and agreeing with her. As the mother-in-law's bullying got worse, I started gathering evidence to see if there was anything I could do to help. Surrounding relatives started blaming my husband too. Are you serious, Isaac? This is unacceptable. Why aren't you protecting your wife? You just take your mother's side without any compassion for Fiona? It is your job to protect your wife. Shame on you. My husband was attacked and suddenly looked frightened. No, it's just that she's... What? Did I do something? When you wanted to live with your mother-in-law, I granted your request. And you've always complied with your mother's request. So what else do you want to say to me? My husband can't get a word out. Oh, it's perfect then. You said if I disobeyed your mother, we'd get a divorce. Now that I've been disobeyed, you're right. Our divorce is in order. No. That's not what I mean. No. I knew it was going to be a divorce. And still, I disobeyed. Come on, Fiona. I was just saying. My mother-in-law, who was listening to the conversation with my husband, with a pained look on her face, interrupted. Enough of this. It's disgraceful that you are divorcing him at this table. I immediately retorted. Actually, that's my line. You were the one who started it. Remember? I don't want to argue anymore. But you're the one who started it. Then, my grandfather-in-law patted me on the shoulder. Fiona is right. You too. You are the cause of all this. We're all here to celebrate my wife's birthday. No. Leave. With that, he kicked my husband and my mother-in-law out of the house. Now we can enjoy ourselves without any worries. My mother-in-law looked straight at me and said, In the old days, there was a word for absolute obedience to one's mother-in-law. But I thought to myself, I believe that a good relationship can only be built by respecting the other person as a human being. So I never forced my daughter-in-law anything. I treated her as a human being. But maybe that wasn't good enough. I've only made her worse. My grandmother-in-law is in tears. I can't believe They made her say such a thing at her own celebration. I hate that stupid mother-in-law. It's not your fault at all. It's theirs. They can't be helped. When I said that, grandmother-in-law smiled at me as usual. Let me cast a spell on you, so you will get all the happiness in the world. She squeezed my hand and quietly closed her eyes. I was overwhelmed with her love and her strength that I could not believe she was 80 years old. I hope that your life will be a good one, Fiona. I tried my best to hold back the tears welling up in my eyes. After the celebration, my husband and I divorced. I had enough evidence of their bullying, so the divorce proceedings went smoothly, although we had to go through lawyers. I didn't want to be a stickler about it, but I also received alimony. I decided to turn the apartment over to my ex-husband. I can't afford to pay $2,000 rent. My ex-husband begged for my help, but I have no obligation or duty to take care of a stranger. Then why don't you find a new place? I told him no. But my mom says she likes it in here and wouldn't leave. I was so fed up with him that I said nothing. Then why don't you work hard and pay the rent? I mean, it's none of my business anymore. That was our last conversation. After all, he was behind on his rent for about 3 months, and he and my ex-mother-in-law were evicted from the house. They were having a hard time finding a new place to live because of the damage to his credit report from being behind on his rent. I can't believe that a man in his prime can't even get a credit card approved. My ex-grandmother-in-law made a big difference in my life by reaching out to me at that time. We became strangers after the divorce, but we kept in touch through phone calls and letters. A few years later, she develops dementia and was sent to an institution. Although I am no longer a member of her family, I still visit her from time to time. She may not recognize me anymore, but her gentle and kind smile is still the same as it was then. I will become a kind and strong person like you. Please watch over me. I vowed to her as I hold her hand tightly.